Hello everybody, welcome to DCD Dialogues, Dance Collection Dances, conversations with dance artists across the country. I am Dr. 𝗦𝗱𝗱𝗿. I'm a dance artist and a dance historian with DCD, and I'm pleased to welcome and introduce our guest, Sandra Lamouche, a nehiyaw Cree hoop dancer, mother, wife, with an MA in Indigenous Studies, which focused on Indigenous dance and well-being. Thank you for coming to share with us. I'd like to also acknowledge that I myself am currently on the land of Toronto, and this is also where DCD is located, and it is the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Anishinaabe, Métis, Mississaugas of the Credit, who have been caretakers of the land. And this is a site of human activity and dance for tens of thousands of years. And it's important to also acknowledge the ceremonial as well as traditional dances and practices that were banned for a very long time, affecting everyday life. I, in particular, am a descendant of many peoples, including people of African descent who were brought to 𝗦ὼİt'i-Kiskaya, also known as Haiti, and am currently residing in Toronto. I like to also acknowledge the Indigenous elders, peers, colleagues who have taught me a lot through dance and outside of dance on this land. So, Sandra, thank you. Hi, how are you?
Tansa, Oki, hello, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for being with us. I'm really excited to have this conversation. Also acknowledging that we both practice what I would call traditional dances. And I'm really curious to dive right into the deeper conversations that we have about our dances. So, as part of the hoop dance community, where do you enter the conversation?
Well, I was taught the hoop dance from my hoop dance teacher, 𝗬<silence> first charger, and he's Blackfoot, but I myself am Cree from Treaty 8, Bigstone Cree Nation, and in Northern Alberta. And actually, neither of us have a traditional stories or practice of the hoop dance that I'm aware of. So the story and the hoop dance is actually it has been shared intertribally, which is actually similar to a lot of other powwow dance styles. So I learned the Anishinaabe version. And as a young kid, like I remember just having that need to move and run and to be outside. And so those kind of things are like really drew me to the hoop dance. And then this yeah, some of the teachings, but I started off actually tap, jazz, ballet, that kind of dance. My mom put me in there when I was very young as a child because I was pigeon-toed, so my toes pointed inwards, and when I did the dance, the ballet, I had to do the out, point my toes out, and I always say that was my first experience with the healing power of dance, and so. The hoop dance is also known as a healing dance, but I learned the Anishinaabe story of it, so the Ojibwe version. And there's different versions of the hoop dance story, but that's the one my teacher shared with me and some of the teachings that went along with it. So um, I was really drawn into like the cultural part of it, the spiritual part of it. And also like it represents all of life, all of creation. And so growing up really close to the land and spending so much time outdoors, I just had a little like shack that I lived in. We had a big family, and um we lived you know not in a very like a very rural kind of area. Greward, Alberta for the first few years of my life. So very close to the forest. My mom had a garden. My dad did hunting and fishing. So we were very traditional in that sense and with those values and that experience. So I have memories of just like that being my happiest time of my life. And, we didn't have running water, or, we had an outhouse. And so, like my childhood experience of happiness and joy and love all comes from that kind of experience that's for me very grounded in like what the hoop dance represents and what it means, and the importance of the story behind it, the beauty of life, right? How important that is. And yeah, so that's a little bit about um I guess my connection to the hoop dance. And um, the story also talks about equality, the symbol of the hoop, I guess, equality and balance. And so with that is like the social justice issues. And again, those were part of my traditional values my parents instilled in me growing up, like honesty, respect, um, just even when it came to gender, like my brothers and sisters, and we weren't treated like, we didn't grow up with those really patriarchal kind of attitudes. Like my parents didn't raise me that way. And so yeah, so I really like that part of the hoop dance. And I still use a lot of those in like my everyday life and lots of aspects of my life to guide me. So it's just like not be beyond just like being on stage. It's like in my home and in my family and community, those different hoop dance teachings. So people would like, I've been called a practitioner of the hoop dance, not just a hoop dancer. So like acknowledging that it's more of a deeper connection that I've developed over the last 20 or so years with the hoop dance.
Right, thank you. And what I'm hearing also is that um like the hoop dance sort of it is traditional in the sense that there's a specific foundation of how hoop dance is developed. And also I hear that there are all these elements of your childhood, but also of your everyday that you bring into your practice.
Yeah, no, that would be true. I mean, when I started, like, when I decided to do my master's thesis, it was like mostly because of the hoop dance and the profound impact that it did have on my life. So one of the teachings was around the circle and how it contains like the four directions, and you'll see hoop dancers will acknowledge the four directions, or if you like in ceremonies, the number four is very important in a lot of those protocols that we use. So I looked at it like that holistic model of well-being. Um, and within there's like spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental. And so, living a life of sobriety, practicing, spirituality, for me, ceremony, the emotional balance. So like trying to have good relationships and maintain good relationships, and even like taking care of your own emotional health, whether that's counseling or meditation or whatever it is that we have to do, even especially when we're going through hard times. Um, and then the mental aspect, thoughts, knowledge, wisdom, and sharing that, learning from elders. Yeah, all those different parts of holistic wellness are tied to that hoop dance practice. But then the tradition like of it, the traditional practices, what I was told was it was originally a ceremonial dance, so just done in ceremonies. And then over time, like you mentioned, when Indigenous dance was outlawed, there were different adaptations that happened within Indigenous dance that enabled it to continue. And so some of that was like um, the hoop dance was done in Wild West shows. So it was done for show purposes. And then they say the founder of the modern hoop dance is Tony Whitecloud. And so before that, it was done maybe more traditionally, more privately, ceremonially, with different protocols. And part of that was like hoop was a single willow hoop, and it, was more part of that healing part of it. The hoop dancer as representing a healer or a counselor. And those teachings I still tried to maintain of, like, being a role model, that counseling aspect of, like, helping others or guiding others, and sharing those teachings with other people too. So I try to maintain that part of it, even though I don't know the ceremonial aspects of it. But so
Mhm.
Tony Whitecloud was the first one to use 5 hoops when he danced. And so that was like an evolution of it, an adaptation, and meant for it to continue to survive in like a more modern sense. So what my hoop dance teacher shared was that it's a living dance. Our culture is living. It's not a
Mhm.
dying culture, which like you would have heard maybe when it was banned, when it was outlawed, maybe even the 70s, you would have heard that kind of stuff, like native culture is a dying culture. But the way we look at it is like, no, it's a living culture. And just because we don't like live in teepees and hunt buffalo doesn't mean our culture is dead. It's still alive. And part of being alive is the movement and the changes that we all go through, the growth, the learning, like all of those things. And that's part of the hoop dance teaching itself. It's part of, for me, it's part of Cree philosophy and meaning of life, is that we change and we grow and we evolve, and we transform. And sometimes it especially comes from like the difficulties, the challenges, and the struggles that we go through that makes us um, evolve. And so, yeah, I feel like our struggles, especially with colonialism and assimilation, that was a big push to change and evolve and transform, and hopefully recreate some of our practices so that they are able to keep going.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're sharing so much that is raising light bulbs or turning light bulbs in my head. Um, and one of the things that I really appreciate that you're sharing is that you're talking about how hoop dance has continued and also how it has transformed to adapt. And it's making me think a lot about this idea of I guess traditional hoop dance and then the contemporary, like making it more contemporary. But then in the way that you're explaining, for example, um, you mentioned Tony Whitecloud used 5 hoops. So I'm also curious to know how many hoops do you normally use, and what is the significance of using those number of hoops?
Hmm. Yeah, some dancers use like 30 or more hoops, like a lot. They just stack and they have these huge formations. And with that, it just takes more time to get into those like larger formations. But I was taught 13 hoops in the beginning, and I stayed with that. And for me, part of the significance is the 13 is like not a bad luck number for us. It's actually like a sacred number because it coincides with our months, the moon. So there's 13 moons in a year, and each of those moons, well, we often we think of the grandmother moon, so it's related to like women and women's teachings and grandmothers, and the moon cycles are also like used to like the moons are also, when we go through the year, our moons will be like flower moon or eagle moon. So it's really connected to also the changes in the land. And that's yeah, that's for me is very powerful, is thinking about that connection of the number 13 and the connection with being a woman and the moons, but also like um, early on when I started hoop dancing, there were not so many women hoop dancers, and some
Mhm.
people didn't think that women were like didn't think that woman could hoop dance, or they didn't know that woman could hoop dance. And I tried to look into like the reasons for that, and I couldn't find a lot. Like I couldn't find any teachings around that that said that women were not allowed. Um, so that was kind of really interesting. I know that like the first hoop dancer in the story I learned was male, and so I don't know if that was part of it. And then it was also known as like a courting dance too, traditionally.
Mm.
So I don't know if
Okay.
that was another part of it, like just because of those traditional gender roles and stuff like that. Maybe it was, um, yeah, maybe it was something related to that. But other than that, like asking other hoop dancers and stuff like that, what is the teaching that says that? And there isn't any that prevents it. And then as a woman, like being a life giver, you know, and a dance related to life, the circle of life, and the hoop of life. It just seems like I think important that women are hoop dancers because of that symbol, and even just representing the animals, the plants, you know, the also the Mother Earth, right? So there's lots of female like um, symbols within the
Symbolism.
hoop dance. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, this is really great. Yeah, you mentioned so many things, including the connection between hoop dance and healing, well-being, also the type of information, that it seems that you get from even practicing hoop dance. So I guess this might be a repetition of what you just said, maybe, but I'm wondering, like, what type of information do you see that hoop dance gives you access to?
Ooh. Um, um, through hoop dancing, I've been like focusing a lot on even just like the I think people would call it like somatic movements, but like one of the examples would be like when you do like the eagle pose, and so your arms are outstretched with the hoops, and that movement with your arms outstretched, it's such a powerful movement. I think they would say it's like a power pose that we do,
Mm,
right? But it's a common hoop dance. It's common with the hoop dance to do that eagle, and part of it, like I feel like that heart, like you're open hearted, right? And so that to me is a very symbolic movement, and it's like so connected to some of the teachings of the eagle. And so there's stories even about the eagle and related to love, and some people would say that the eagle represents love, um, as one of the, like there's the seven, I think it's seven grandfather teachings, but those teachings, and even like there's Cree stories that talk about um the eagle and the connection to the creator. So it's the bird that flies the highest in the sky, right? So it's most connected to the sun or the creator, right? Because we often um that's often like our that's our creator, right? The light, connected to the light, um the sun and that fire. So that warmth. So there's so much like symbols behind it for me. But part of like even my daily dance practice is just like sometimes I just, without hoops, I just do a eagle, like
mhm,
eagle movements, and practice that like opening the heart, and um and using like my physical body to be able to influence my other areas of health, my emotional health, right? So to be to show love and care, and doing it through like getting my body to practice those movements.
mhm,
Yeah, so that's one of the one of the things. But then one of the teachings is also each hoop can represent a challenge in your life. And so as we go through the hoops, you know, it represents going through challenges and struggles. And then the hoop dancer will make a nice, like a beautiful shape, an eagle or the globe, and then um, that shape will you know, collapse on itself, and the hoop dancer struggles maneuvering through all of those hoops and to make another design. And so there's like this constant like beauty, and then there's collapse and transformation. We're struggling to manipulate the hoop, right? Well, the goal is to not struggle so much, of course, to not make that so noticeable, right? So it's supposed to be like your the less you struggle with the hoop dance is like a reflection of your life, how you're not struggling in your everyday life is really interesting. So it's really like a reminder constantly when you're going through the hoop dance. And if you're struggling more than usual, it's like, okay, am I eating healthy? Am I exercising?
Mhm.
Am I stressed out right now? So it's like
Yeah.
such a such a cool experience. And you know, my hoop dancer would always say, you know, like we all like nobody's perfect. It's not about being perfect. It's about um trying like to continue to try. And it's also the hoop dance's recognition that like we all have struggles and we have to all go through these struggles. Um and after like the other side of those struggles is like we become stronger and wiser. And with the hoop dance, you know, you become faster with the hoops and all
Mhm.
of that kind of stuff. So it's like really trying to look at that growth mindset that we have. So not looking at um, like, I don't know, like looking at everything in this kind of
Mhm.
balance in life. And so, yeah, it's like a constant reminder, like, because sometimes, like, especially after COVID, I didn't think I would ever hoop dance again. It was really hard because I tried to keep running like a year into COVID. I was still running several times a week, but afterwards, like nothing was happening. And so I um, stopped running and I would do yoga instead. I just kind of slowed down and I thought, I probably never could hoop dance again. It was like my
Mhm.
first hoop dance after COVID was so difficult. Um, and I thought I was done, but then I just kept going. And then, oh yeah, I could still do this. You know, my body
Mm.
started to remember. I started to be like more active and all of that kind of stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it's like the practice of it is just um, teaches you about yourself and your life, what you're going through. And so it's like every time you dance, you're like reflecting on your where you are in life. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So it really sounds like the hoop dance also brings you back to who you are, um, and is a compass in a way. And I'm curious to know, given because when you mentioned that you were running during COVID, but that you were not practicing hoop dance, was it because like what specifically made it that you weren't practicing your hoop dance?
Oh, well, I was still practicing. I was still practicing and stuff like that, but I think it was more of the performing. So
Okay.
because of
Yeah.
a lot of the performance opportunities were not happening, I would like, you know, sometimes I go and I do like 10 or more hoop dance performances in a week or 2 weeks. And when it's busy, right? When I'm busy, I'm like constantly performing. But yeah, it was more the performance part of it, which was, yeah, pretty interesting. I was still pretty consistently trying to dance, and I was actually trying to use that um, to deal with any mental health or whatever, like the social aspects of COVID. I tried to use hoop dancing and just dance in general. Like sometimes I was in my backyard in my bare feet, and like one of my elders said, like, you're a dancer, you know, your name, your my Blackfoot name too is 𝗦𝗬𝗟𝗺cie, happy dancing woman. And so it was like um my calling to use dance in that way. And
Mm.
But I always see it so much wider because when we look at even the education system and residential schools, it took us away from that land, the raising our children on the land, like our ancestors have, and always having that movement in our life, like being nomadic, being on the land outside, always having to connect with the land and just like so much movement compared to how we live today with, being in desks all day or being so sitting down so much. So I really um, feel like just movement in general is just so important for um, everyone. I feel like with colonialism that we've kind of lost that
Mm,
importance of dance too, dance, music, movement, all of those things I think that are just part of more so of just living a good life and being human. And I wouldn't say it's like, oh, dancers are like here and they just do that. Like I feel
right.
like dance should be more, everybody should do
Yeah.
it more,
Yeah.
right? Just like we have music class, maybe there should just be dance class and then phys ed and then sports.
Yes.
But yeah.
No, I definitely agree that, excuse me, I also see it the same way that dance is part of everyday life. And there's an expression in Creole that says tout se pas, which means like everything is a dance move, everything is movement. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about how, yeah, when we move every day, like I'd say the average person is moving for convenience or moving to for utilitarian purposes, whereas yeah, like dance or moving intentionally through movement, through space, I mean, it's like this whole other expression of life, right? Yeah,
Hmm, hmm.
yeah, and it just brings me back to when I want to celebrate and relax, I go out to dance. And I love going to specifically like Haitian events. And it's funny because when I think of those moments, I think of how it's always almost like a game. It's like when I'm partner dancing, it's like we're telling a story and we're telling jokes to each other as we dance. And it's yeah, yeah, it's just your comments made me think even more about yeah, how necessary, how crucial dance is to life. And I also remind people that our body is made mainly of water. And so if we stop moving or if we don't move every day, we're actually like right, like stagnant water festers bacteria. So then we're getting ill. So moving all the time and movement is actually part of well-being. Like exactly everything you've been saying so far. Um, and you had shared with me that you've worked on a piece that's called Out of Wounds. And that ties again with well-being and the practice of dance and the specific traditional practices that you use in articulating your work. And so I wanted to know, what is your creative process? What is your dance process like?
Oh, yeah, that's a great segue because I was just, as you were talking, I was thinking of that like body wisdom or the knowledge that we carry within our bodies. And that was one of the ways that the Out of Wounds piece came about was listening into my inner wisdom. So when we talk about movement and bodies, like part of it for me is like accessing knowledge that we carry within our DNA. And when I first started learning more about Indigenous contemporary dance practices, that's one of the things that I started to hear about was this idea of blood memory, that we have memories within our blood and our DNA that are passed down, from our ancestors, from our family, previous generations. And, like I think more recently you'll hear, that those ideas of like epigenetics and stuff like that in science. But part of my research was, looking at those Indigenous teachings of blood memories and blood memory. And so with Out of Wounds, it was like part of my practice. I've done land-based dance for maybe over a decade. I feel like it just kind of almost like my whole life of like um, of exploring, but more like intentionally doing it in the last decade or so of going outside and then creating movement. And part of that is um, looking at, yeah, the body as a source of wisdom and knowledge. So different than the Western system, like we said, that so different than the education system, which is everything knowledge is just all up in our heads. And like um, limiting, that's limiting and disconnects us from the body and from the land as well, right? If we're just trying to only articulate everything through words
Right.
or thoughts, um, it
Mhm.
doesn't allow us to like learn things in different ways. And so with Out of Wounds, um, I was actually inspired it was also during COVID. I did a video, a collaborative video dance piece, and it was different Indigenous women dancers from actually across the world. There was even
Mm.
a Maori dancer that joined us, but the elder Edna Manitowabi was guiding us, and she was teaching us about those Anishinaabe clan system. And so there's 7 clans, and in their teachings, they have each clan represents one of the 7 senses. And so, in kindergarten, we'll learn about the 5 senses, right? And so that's our taste, touch, smell, sight, our hearing. I think that was 5. Yeah, 5. And she says there's additional 2 in traditional teachings. One would be that of our intuition. And like since I was probably a teenager, my mom had been talking about this idea of our intuition as our she would say it's the spirits are guiding us through our intuition. So that's how she would explain it to me, like those gut feelings. And then the 7th sense in the Anishinaabe teachings is not yet known to humans because we are not ready for that gift yet. So whatever it is that we're um, not evolved enough yet in is yeah, whatever is preventing us. But yeah, I think we can like maybe uh I think people have speculated, maybe it's like seeing into the future, or maybe like I think like sometimes I think maybe it's mind reading, because I don't know if like I don't think I'm ready for that. For
Right,
people to
right.
read my mind or to read other people's minds, but
Mm.
um
And
maybe it's part of our intuition too, that like, ability to read other people, I guess.
yeah,
So yeah, so that was like when I started really looking at those senses and exploring different senses that way. Um, yeah, I just always made it a conscious decision to, explore different ways of healing through the senses. And I would be attracted to different smells or textures or touches, and I would use those for my own healing. And so one of the things that I struggled with after COVID was anxiety, bad anxiety. And so I remember smelling this. Actually, I have it. It's a
mm,
diamond willow fungus. So it's valued among Cree and Blackfoot for the scent of it. Yeah, and it's burned as a smudge. And so you take the smoke and you use it for to cleanse your aura, spirit, body. So it's used to pray with as well. but I was really drawn to the smell. And so I had a smaller piece and I ended up carrying it with me everywhere I went. And every time I got anxious, I would smell it. It would help, like I could feel it calming me down. And so I got really interested in this and I thought, oh, this is kind of weird. Like, why am I doing this? Because um, I didn't know anybody to do that. And
Mhm.
so I actually found an article on, it was from a scientific journal, and it showed I was reading through it, and it said that the diamond willow was actually worn as a necklace. And so women would make beads out of it. And then it was also sewn onto men's robes. And so they would wear the diamond willow fungus. And I was like blown away because I never heard of that practice before. And like lots of my family or friends that I asked, they hadn't heard of it either. So it was like almost it was like almost forgotten or almost gone. But I saw that they actually have those necklaces and photographs with the robes. They have it just here at the Glenbow Museum. So one of my goals is to like be able to visit that someday. They're renovating, so I've been like just waiting for a good time. But that yeah, that teaching, like finding that knowledge where I followed, like I literally followed my nose, and then it led me to this practice of carrying, holding on to that diamond willow and taking it with me, carrying it with me, wearing it, maybe in a shirt pocket close to my heart. Different things like that. And like my body knew to do that. And whereas in my mind, I would have never thought of it. And it was only through connecting to my body that I was able to uncover this kind of um, knowledge that um, I had not learned before. So I was able to teach myself through the land and
Mhm.
um, create a dance piece. And then I looked at the diamond willow. I looked at other uses, and I talked to an elder as well, and he was sharing that the ancestors are still teaching us through the land. And so that was one of the examples. And I looked at the diamond willow too, how it grows and that kind of stuff. I found that it like often the fungus will grow when a tree is wounded. And so it grows out of the wounds of the trees. And I thought that was really cool because when I was going through all that anxiety, different things happening in my life, it was like out of my own woundedness that I discovered this medicine grew, like this knowledge grew out of my own woundedness. So I just thought it was so beautiful. And that's why I called the dance piece Out of Wounds. And so I looked at the textures of the trees and movement of the trees, the smudge, the fungus. I looked at the transformation and like what it means to be broken and to transform into a medicine and healing. And yeah, it was just a beautiful experience and process. And then at the end, I had the elders video projected, and I added with his story, his prayer, and his words. I added some hoop dancing into it because I thought, oh, what better to represent the final healing than using a hoop dance? Yeah.
Mm, thank you. And so, wow, thank you so much. Yeah, that was very, very enriching. And I wanted to know, so which forms of dance did you use throughout the piece, given that you said you added hoop dance sort of at the end?
Hmm. I use like contemporary movement and some of the contemporary like indigenous land-based dance practices. So and then I also incorporated at the end, there's a piece of fabric, but I incorporated some traditional dance steps in it as well. Um, at the beginning, it actually starts, it sounds like a drum beat, a heartbeat, or a round dance. And so where I'm from, there we're known to do the round dance as part of our traditional dances. And so I got um, a sound designer, Danielle LaRose, and she did the sound design for me. We started off with that just a regular round dance beat, and it related to like my experience too with the anxiety, because I remember waking up with a racing heart. And so to me it was like, oh, my heartbeat, when it's regulated, when it's not regulated. So I asked her to do some of those different heartbeat sounds of that. So again, it's like really listening to your body too, and the wisdom is like, oh, my, when I'm having a racing heart, like my heart is like telling me something is not right. And then listening to the drum beat is like, okay, what is a healthy, strong, calm heart sound like? And so those sounds too were part of the piece. And then we looked at, because of the woundedness, the trees breaking, storm sounds, wind, and that kind of stuff. So the movements did have some of that rhythm within it too. Um, yeah, so it was like some contemporary, some indigenous dance forms that I combined within the dance. And um, yeah, and then the land-based dance practices. So even at the like third section, I think it's like kind of four sections. The first section was like going, like feeling that heartbeat into the racing heartbeat. And then there was a whole transformation section, and I did it like entirely underneath the fabric. So all my movements, I was covered in this like tan colored fabric that looked like the color of the fungus, diamond willow fungus. So all of it was like the movement and transformation. What does that feel like and look like and sound like? And um underneath the cloth. And I actually had a costume change underneath the fabric on stage, which was really fun. I don't know exactly how it came up to, but um, I had a dress underneath another dress, so I was able to like
Mhm.
transform my costume on the stage, which was really fun to do that part. Yeah, and then there was certain animals, because the elder talked about certain animals that were hunted, and then when you hunt, you use the diamond willow fungus. So it was like very non-linear kind of storytelling through movement
Right.
that I used, and I quite enjoyed it a lot. Just from like, buffalo hooves, and I was just like pounding on the ground. So very like, for it was more about my own healing than anything, than any kind of following any kind of form. I tried to do it very like from within, like what is my body saying this is about too.
Mhm.
And then consulting with elders and the story of it, like what is the transformation part, and then what is the healing part. And part of it, like on the video projection, was the smoke from the smudge. And so I was like, oh, this section is very spiraling. And again, like um, I had like a giant fabric that I used, and ended up being like traditional dance again, and the fancy shawl, the open, like the closed and
Mhm.
open kind of movements, and spinning, spiraling, and then using the fabric in those kinds of ways as well.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah.
sounds like throughout your piece you incorporated elements of the hoop dance. Like so I'd almost like I know it's a contemporary work, but I almost to me it almost sounds like it was actually entirely developed based on like hoop dance. It's just that it showed up in different ways at different segments of the piece.
Yeah, yeah. So with like with the, with the creation process, I've actually been pretty consistently using this arc in my work, and it's usually, creation, destruction, and recreation, and that's part of the great flood stories that we have, that talk about a huge flood, and then afterwards the recreation of the earth. And when I thought of the hoop dance too, that's what I think of, is like we make a beautiful design and then destruction and then recreate something out of it. And so that is like the common, um, even if I'm doing like a more contemporary piece, that's often the like the outline that I kind of follow with my work. So that's why I thought Out of Wounds would be, yeah, like the kind of the creation, the beginning, and then there's this really destruction, transformation, and then there's a rebirth, recreation part that comes out of it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So
Yeah.
like that cycle of life. Um, and do you find that government funding or particular sources of funding have really supported you in your creative process?
Um, yeah, to an extent, but it was actually a very long kind of process for me. And I did multiple kind of sections of it. So um, I find that like this type of work, because it's not just like get the music and do the dance moves, like um, that type of choreography is like a lot more deeper than that, is and difficult to create, because it is like not just kind of a surface level expression that um that you have lots of experience with, right? So I did a series of, like, I did a dance research lab with Dancer Studio West in Calgary, and they helped me to, establish like the outline and thinking about what does costume look like, what might the music sound like, will there be projections, and like, so I was just researching like ideas to it was almost like all the ideas just in order to apply for a grant, right?
Hmm.
And so they helped me to really piece together all of these different elements. Um, and to that helped me to apply for a grant. But then I also did a 1 month residency in Santa Fe at the Santa Fe Art Institute. And that worked out really good because Dancing Earth, a company that I've worked with for um, a long time over the years, they actually do a lot of work around climate justice and the environment and different things like that. But they were doing their 20th anniversary, and they were doing an intensive with mentors that were already in Santa Fe at the time of my residency. So I actually kind of doubled up of like part of my residency, I'm gonna like do the Dancing Earth stuff. So I performed for the 20th anniversary of Dancing Earth. And then I did a showing at the Santa Fe Art Institute. And yeah, it was just really good. So I had multiple, like multiple intense kind of that intensive part, but then I also had the collaborative feedback from other choreographers and peers, Indigenous dancers that are my peers. They gave me some support and feedback too. And that that residency only ended up being like a 5-minute excerpt of the piece. And so that was part of the journey of it, right? So they say it takes like to an hour for 1 minute of choreography, but I was able to do the 5 minutes, a section of the music, and
Mm.
then I got asked to go to Trent University Nojam Theater last November, and I took the 5 minutes and I expanded it into it was about a 20-minute piece eventually. Yeah. So
Okay.
um, yeah, it was I think I had a travel grant and then I had a creation project grant after that. So I it took multiple grants and funding and opportunities in order to create it. So yeah, I don't know if there's any funding that's like allows you to do that long
Mm.
creation process like that.
I think
Um,
that I want to say that Canada Council for the Arts like has changed their model to potentially um encapsulate all of that, the different aspects of the process. But yeah, but congratulations on all of those accomplishments.
thank
Yeah,
you.
that's great. I really, yeah, I feel like we could keep talking about your work. Um, but I'll just, open it up to allow you to share, like, what are you currently working on, or what are your maybe aspirations with this particular work?
Yeah, I want to continue to kind of develop it, and I do have a opportunity to go to the Matriarchs Uprising Festival, which is in February, so next 2026, and that will be in Vancouver, and that's a really awesome festival because it
Right.
has again in just Indigenous women from across the world. Like you'll have Maori and there was a Australian dancer that I got to get to know last year at the festival, and yeah, so I'm hoping to keep refining and developing a few things with the piece and presenting it again in Vancouver. So I'm pretty excited about that. And
Yeah.
right now is like a big focus on hoop dancing at the moment. And I have, yeah, like I have a show that I've been doing, I think since 2019, but his name is Matthew Barney, and he's a visual artist, but he's asked me to do some work with him. It was a film originally called Redoubt, and we did that in Utah in 2019. We filmed, and then a few years later, the premiere was at Yale University, and then we went to do a live performance version of the film in at Art Basel in Switzerland. I think that was 2021, shortly after there was still all the COVID rules happening. Um, and then we're doing another version of the show that's actually combining his more recent project. So that's going to happen this summer. And yeah, he's actually been pretty inspirational the way he does like his multidisciplinary, and he keeps like the way he evolves his work is so interesting to me. Like it'll go from a film to a performance, like to a sculpture to and like when we did the one in Switzerland, the live performance, we filmed it and then we did extra filming. So it became like another film out of it. And I just was so inspired. So I'm going to be working with him again this summer, and a climate anxiety immersive performance I've been doing called Just Breathe 𝗦ὼgamiau And so it's Mother Earth, just breathe Mother Earth. And that one's been going on for several years. Again, it started with like a short dance film I did about this Mother Earth character and talking about the climate, but also using like Indigenous protocols. Um, yeah, so I feel like the hoop dance too with that one is really interesting to do more climate, specifically climate related work around using the hoop dance has been um, really important and actually really well received.
Mhm.
That live performance, we made that into a film, and we did a keynote last week in Edmonton at a conference, and they really loved it. So they want us to go back to Edmonton, this time to the U of A. They want us to show that film. So yeah, it'll be those are two of the projects I'm working on in the next little while.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, Sandra. Is there a website or social media handles that you would like to share so we could keep following you and follow the progress of your work?
Yeah, I just have my website, Sandra Lamouche. I am not as don't update it as much, and then my Instagram is Hoop Dance Goddess. That was a funny story. A
Mhm.
student at a school saw me perform, and afterwards he was like, "You are a goddess," and he was like 10 years old. And so that's my Instagram now. I think
That's really nice.
it was so funny. So
Nice.
I took it on.
Well, thank you so much, Hoop Dance Goddess. We really, really appreciate having you. And yeah, thank you for sharing all of that you shared. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for giving all of those insights. And so we will end this conversation of DCD Dialogues. And please, to our audience, thank you for joining us. And so, yeah, we'll be uploading it on our YouTube and look forward to following your work and to more conversations. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And take care.
Take care.